Hey everyone, today we're going to tackle a topic that's close to the heart of many engineers: motivation. How do you stay motivated when you're constantly iterating, constantly improving, and facing a moving target that never seems to stop? It's a challenge that many of us face, and today I'm going to share some strategies and tips that have helped me maintain my motivation as an engineer. So whether you're a seasoned veteran or new to the field, stick around. This video is something for everyone. Engineers typically operate on roadmaps and company or investor timelines. We run on these things called sprints that typically have time frames of either 2 weeks or 4 weeks, or maybe even 6 or 8 weeks. But within this time frame, there are a set amount of tasks that we hope to complete, and we pick up these tasks and complete them. Every sprint, we take on more and more tasks, and because there is never really a perfect product that is free of issues or bugs, there's always iterations and improvements to be made. This can create a scenario where there's constantly a moving target, because when is something really done? As engineers, we can just continue to pick up endless amounts of tickets. We can solve every bug that comes our way. We can do every feature request that comes our way. But to us, the product is never really done, like I just mentioned, because there's always more things to do. This can be a recipe for disaster that can quickly snowball into burnout. As humans, we need wins in order to continue to feel like what we do on a day-to-day basis matters. And it's just so easy to never acknowledge wins as an engineer. So my first strategy in all of this is to acknowledge and document your wins along the way. If you complete this cool new feature, great. Sit and acknowledge the fact that you completed that new feature. If there was this tough bug that you were working on for multiple days, acknowledge that you sat and did that. You can even document these wins in some running document that you can look back on, and you can track your progress as an engineer. This will come useful in future times where you're discussing compensation, say with your manager or other higher ups. You'll have concrete things to look at. And then ultimately, you'll also have things to put on your resume to show that you were actually contributing to the company's growth. Something else that I think is important is to look into the near future and have short-term goals. I don't mean just things that have to be directly related to work. These could be investment or saving goals. Personally, I've made it a really big goal of mine to take $5,000 of my paycheck every month and distribute it into high-yield savings accounts, ETFs that have fundamentally been safe over the long term in terms of investments, and then some portion into crypto. But having that investment goal has really grounded me in the fact that I am doing very well for myself, and that even in the dog days of engineering where it feels like I'm just on this treadmill, I can feel good knowing that at the end of the day, I'm a software engineer, I make a decent salary, and I'm able to invest for my future goals. So if everything is not going well for me, I know that the salary is coming in and that money is going to responsible places. These short-term goals could also be just life-related. This studio that I'm sitting in wasn't set up before this year. It was a goal of mine to set up when I moved to this new condo over here in South Boston. Again, it's just similar to the investments. It's another goal that involved funds. Like, this studio wasn't very cheap to set up, and I'll definitely have a studio tour in the future to go over exactly what's in here. But it made the work that I was doing on a day-to-day basis worth it for me, because I was able to have a whole space like this that I can set up, that I can film in, and I can share my story with as little friction as possible moving forward. Also, in terms of short-term goals, I make it a concerted effort to just visit family as much as I possibly can, because we can get lost in our day-to-day grind of things, especially as an engineer, that it feels very isolated. So I really make sure to take those moments to travel and see my family, see Michelle's family, and really just take those moments in and realize that why I'm doing what I do and the people that I definitely want to share my success with moving forward. That's why recently I had a big trip to LA where I went to my cousin's wedding and got to spend time with my family, and then went to Miami for a Bad Bunny concert where I got to spend time with Michelle's family. And it's little moments like that where I can just enjoy life, and having those can really ground you and help push you in the days where you're losing motivation. And I know I mentioned that these goals don't have to be work-related, but they can also be work-related. When I was hired, it was for a junior engineer title, even though the job listing was for a senior engineer. They ultimately hired me because they saw senior engineering potential, but felt like I wasn't there at that point in time. So I figured out when the next evaluation period was, which was just 3 months later, and I set a really big short-term goal of mine to become that senior engineer as fast as feasibly possible. And because the evaluation period was just 3 months away, that became my date target. Ultimately, I did end up getting that raise and promotion, but I think it was due in large part because I anticipated it and I worked really hard to just hit that goal that I set for myself. And although it's great to set short-term goals, I think it's also great to set long-term visions for yourself as well, for where you want to progress in your career. There could even be multiple potential paths, but having those on your mind can keep you feeling fulfilled on the day-to-day basis. For example, the way I frame my software engineering career is that I know I don't want to be just an engineer forever. I want to be able to manage my own team. I want to be able to potentially start my own company and lead something that is my own brainchild, create a product that I completely developed myself. And because this is a long-term vision, there isn't really a bound of time that has to stress me out in any given day. I can continue to rise up the ranks as an engineer. So far, I've gone from a junior developer to an engineer 2 to a senior engineer, and maybe I become a staff or principal engineer within the next couple of years. Maybe I transition to becoming an engineering manager to learn those leadership characteristics that I'll need to learn and develop. Maybe over the next couple of years, I have a cool app idea that I want to just start on my own, and I move away from my 9 to 5 to go start that. Either way, having long-term goals like this allow me to look forward to potential future things, potential future career paths, potential future lifestyles that look beyond just the short term. Throughout this whole career journey, I think it's also important to understand the importance of perception. And what I mean by this is to just control what you can control. I think everyone goes through these ebbs and flows in their lives, no matter what career path that they've chosen. It means that there's moments where you're feeling great, that everything you're doing is going towards your broader goals, that you feel very fulfilled on the day-to-day. But there's also those moments where you feel like you're just in this never-ending treadmill that you feel like you'll never be able to get out of. And especially as a software engineer, I think it's easy to just continue to spiral negatively when times are either really busy or when work begins to feel monotonous. I know those are opposite scenarios, but when it's really busy, you feel like you don't have room to breathe, especially when everything you're working on is technical in nature. It feels like everything that you do is a technical exam that's being watched by everyone in the company. And then on the flip side of that, when the tasks just become repetitive, when there's nothing really to jump on at any point, everything just feels monotonous and feels very mindless, if that makes sense. Even if you're continuing to work on a day-to-day basis and you're continuing to code, which you probably like doing because you're a software engineer now, it could still feel very monotonous when there aren't these things that really change up your flow. And I think during these times, it's just important to understand that the way you view things can really affect the way you feel. At the end of the day, you're working as an engineer, which is great in and of itself. Your baseline is already fantastic. You're probably making a fairly decent above average wage. And it's important to understand this in the grand scheme of things, that one day you dreamt of having the job that you have today, and there was a reason for it. There were a bunch of aspects that you really loved about this job, and there are days that you really do love it, and don't let those down days take away from that. Technology may be the fastest moving industry right now, so there's always new tech to explore or tinker with. Seeing what's next can throw excitement back into your day-to-day. Now we even have more resources than ever to learn about the latest and greatest in tech. Even if you're the CTO of your company, there are areas that you can learn more about. As a software engineer at the company I work at now, I'm a mostly back-end engineer, but not even venturing outside of our company's tech stack, I could learn more about our front-end, infrastructure, AI models, or microservices. There are plenty of ways that I can grow as an individual in and outside of the software engineering domain. If I want to venture outside of the domain, I can think about things like sales, I can think about marketing, I can think about just general personal finance, right? I can gain knowledge in these areas that make me feel more well-rounded of an individual and help just bring more positivity to your life. And I know I mentioned that it's easy to get down as an engineer because there are moments that can feel very monotonous. And to that, I think it's definitely possible to change up your day-to-days enough to break that pattern, because it's important to not stay down when you're down. You should seek these opportunities to break up the monotony whenever ever possible. And a lot of the times when you do this, you're actually also able to impress management and leadership at the same time. So to break up monotony on a day-to-day basis, there are a couple things that I look for, right? I look for urgent issues and tasks that need to be solved right now. And for me, this breaks up my normal everyday workflow. I can interact with people who need to relay the urgent issues for me. I feel very accomplished when I finish these tasks because I know that it can contribute to actual user satisfaction at the end of the day. And overall, those are just huge wins that are highly visible, and probably a relatively short amount of effort is needed to solve any of these more urgent issues. It's just the pressure of actually solving them in a timely manner. Another thing that I like to do to break up the monotony is to take on these larger cross-team projects. A lot of the time, certain engineers are involved in these broader projects just because they're one of the louder voices in the room. They probably contribute more to group meetings in general, and people on other teams notice you more. If this isn't the case and you haven't had the opportunity to actually work on these other projects, seek them out. Ask if other teams are working on anything that you may potentially be able to give your input for, and being involved in these larger cross-team projects, again, will help you when it comes to compensation reevaluation or title reevaluation, because a lot of the criteria that you have to meet to become, say, a senior engineer or staff engineer involve working on these broader company-wide projects. And tangentially to cross-team projects, something that I also strive to do is to just brainstorm with other engineers throughout the organization as much as possible. Again, this is just showing them that you're knowledgeable in your specific domain and that you can contribute to these broader organizational initiatives. And all in all, you're just interacting with more people, you're getting closer to more coworkers, and hopefully you feel less isolated when doing so. So the last piece of advice that I would give to an engineer that tells me that they're losing motivation in their day-to-day work is to find fulfillment outside of work. One of the ways that I do this is to set travel dates months in advance. I know that in the moment it's easy to say things like, I can't take time off right now, or let me just finish this project I'm working on. And to that, I'll say that there will always be time to do what you need to get done when you get back. And if you plan your vacations far out in advance, it's ultimately up to the management and your communication to make sure critical work still gets done. So just communicate and go take the necessary time for yourself. Another piece of advice that I would have is to find a sport or activity to make new friends and stay physically healthy. I personally play basketball 3 to 4 times a week. I try to get a lift in every once in a while, and I also work on my physical mobility to make sure that I can play basketball for decades down the road. And doing all this not only makes me feel physically fit and feel healthy, but it also makes me feel better about my future. I know that I'll be able to run around with my kids, maybe shoot around, help teach them some sports. And then also I get to meet a bunch of cool new people, and I've made a ton of friends just playing basketball. And it's just really nice having those human connections outside of my working environment and outside of my friends and family. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, I also make a concerted effort to spend time with my loved ones. And I had a great time this last May, visiting my cousin for their wedding, spending time with my family, spending Mother's Day with my mom. These are those moments that I'll cherish forever, and they're moments that also make me feel good in the moment and make my everyday worth it, because it can support the life where I do get to visit my family as often as I want to. If you made it to this point in the video, comment motivational to let me know you made it this far. Remember, it's okay to have ups and downs. What's important is that you keep learning, celebrate your wins, and maintain a clear vision of your career path. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your fellow engineers. If you like this video, you'll probably like this video where I talk about how you can work harder than 99% of people without burning out. As always, stay inspired, stay positive, and I'll see you in the next one.